Good morning, and welcome to another episode of A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm Action for Life President BC Cloutier, and this is Father Michael Orsi.
Good morning.
Good morning, Father. We've got an exciting program today.
They're all exciting.
You're probably
They're all exciting. Okay.
Now, I'm not going to tell you the subject matter,
All right.
okay?
A surprise.
Instead,
That's
I'm
right.
going to read a little bit of scripture.
All right.
This is from Leviticus, chapter 19.
Leviticus is part of the Torah. They're the first 5 books of the Bible, and this is the book of law. You know, how the Israelites were to structure their lives.
I saw this posted by a friend of mine on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
When an alien resides with you in your land, you shall not oppress the alien. The alien who resides with you shall be to you as the citizen among you. You shall love the alien as yourself, for you were aliens in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So he posted this on Facebook, and his point was, hey, we should just let all these people in because he's a blazing lefty. But that's...
And he's your friend.
Yeah. I do have a couple of them. But he misses the point. Well, maybe he doesn't miss the point, but he didn't make the right point, which is, I think that God would want aliens to come to our country legally.
Okay.
And in a logical fashion, rather than just traipse across the border and then show up at the welfare office.
Okay. I think you know your friend is like he's kind of confused. Could I say that? Confused. I'll tell you why he's confused.
Oh yeah.
This has nothing to do, basically, with illegal aliens and saying just open the borders. All right? It's not just saying open the borders. What we're dealing with here, and this is something that's very, very important, folks, these are really 2 separate issues. If we're dealing with illegal aliens, or what are they being called now? There's a new name.
Not undocumented aliens.
No, that's an old name.
You're right.
There's a new one now. Newcomers or something like that. Anyway, you can use any euphemism you want. But this has to do with people who are already here or, are here legally or illegally. Let me say legally or illegally, they are here. And it has to do with how they are to be treated. How they are to be treated. And even if someone comes into this country illegally, they are still to be treated with dignity and respect.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean that, we can't send people back. Certainly you can send people back. If they're coming here illegally, they did not go through the process, which people who come legally go through a process. You can say, sorry, you have to wait online. You have to go back to where you came from. On the other hand, suppose you have people that have come here illegally, and then you begin to hire these people as part of the workforce, right? And you say, well, okay, you can work on my farm. You can work in my factory. Do we have a right to take advantage of them and give them a subpar wage, or to abuse them because they are illegal and they don't have access to the rights that legal workers have in this country? The answer is no.
Short answer is no. Sure.
The short answer is no. And that's one of the tragedies about illegal immigration. It is that oftentimes you have people who are hiring these people, the illegal aliens, and taking advantage of them. And that is immoral. You're taking advantage of a person who is in a position which they are really unable to stand up for their own rights because they're living under shadow, and they're afraid that they're going to be sent back to their own country, and therefore they allow themselves to be abused. They don't even allow themselves to have a fair wage. So, folks, when you're talking about illegal immigration, it doesn't just end with somebody coming in over the borders. It's how are they to be treated once they get here. And then we can also see that the problem is not just an inundation of people coming into our country with a foreign culture, but it's also a problem that we are, in effect, permitting and allowing an injustice to take place because we're getting cheap labor, and that's a sin.
That's one point. The other points that I would make would be we wouldn't have so many issues with fentanyl if we didn't have people crossing the border. Not only fentanyl, I mean, there's a lot of things. But what's interesting about this issue is, first of all, the polls say that immigration is the number one issue with all voters in America from both parties and all those in between. It is such a serious issue that you have people going against the Biden administration who are Democrats saying enough is enough. It creates economic woes in addition to exploiting these poor people that ripple through the whole economy. I mean, there are a lot of issues with immigration, and unfortunately, for a long time, several years, the public focused on the wall. The wall actually worked.
It worked. There's nothing wrong with a wall if it's there to control illegal immigration, to control the border. There's nothing wrong with that. I think there would probably be something terribly wrong if you decided that you were going to shoot people as they were crossing the border. I mean, but a wall, no, it's kind of neutral.
I don't know. There are so many. This to me is a relatively simple issue, Father. Relatively simple, right? It requires all of the constituents to sit around a table and develop a consensus on how we could deal with this. But as with so many issues in Washington, the people we've elected don't want to do that. They like this chaos.
Yeah. And we talked about chaos before. It's one of the ways that you break down society and then try to recreate it in your own image. So, I'm one of those people who doesn't believe that this is just like happening in a haphazard way. I think it's somewhat planned as to what we want to happen and to what we want to do with the country. I think it's going toward a one world government. I really do. They have people coming in from all different countries. It's not just people coming in from South America or Central America. It's from China. It's from the Middle East. I mean, they're coming in with no concept of what it is to be an American, no love for America, and then to subvert our society. Naturally, there are some coming in because they want a better life for themselves and for their children. And that's very, very understandable. Somebody's coming in for a good purpose like that. I can understand it if you're coming out of poverty. But there is a legal way to do it. And unless we have laws, we have chaos, and we can lose our country. This crisis that we're in today is one that has many, many implications to it. As I said, it's not just people are being exploited by big business, but it's also a problem for us because of the drugs coming through the border. You talk about fentanyl. It's coming in through China. China is sending it to Mexico. Mexico is processing the fentanyl, shipping it to the United States. And do you know, BC, over 100,000 people a year die from fentanyl in this country.
Well aware.
I mean, what is wrong with the government when you're not stopping this fentanyl from coming over the border? And the Chinese know exactly what they're doing. They know every grain of salt that's leaving that country. And this is one way for them. They're going to try to conquer us. And we're going to be conquered from within because our country is going to be under the drugs and the alcohol that our citizens know right from wrong and can't even defend themselves.
Well, I think about Ukraine. And we've talked before that you and I both have personal experiences in Ukraine. I look at the people that just gave up their careers and their lives and said, I'm going to fight for my country. Mm-hmm. I'm going to defend my country. I look around here in America and I think these people, you know, first of all, half of them are in a stupor.
Well, exactly.
And the other half probably physically could not fight if they were compelled to do so.
Well, they say many Americans are ineligible for military service because of their physical condition.
Yeah.
If you're all drugged up and you're just drinking alcohol all the time, I don't know how ready even our armed forces are to repel an attack.
It's a scary thought, Father.
Yeah. I heard somebody speaking the other day, and maybe some of you can do some research into this. But I've heard that on military bases around the world, American bases, that the bar on base is opened all night, 24 hours a day. And then if you have a serviceman or woman that's having a hard time, they're homesick, they have marital problems, a lot of times they'll just say, well, I'll just go to the bar. Why don't you just go to the bar, have a couple of drinks? And they end up, with a serious alcohol problem or drug problem. And so maybe, this is something that our society has to look into, because we're not ready to do battle. Our military is understaffed as it is. The only ones that are at full staff are the Marines, and they're a special breed. But other than that, we are in trouble. We're in trouble.
I think we could take a lot of these, not a lot, but some of these immigrants who pass certain background checks, etc., and enlist them or invite them to enlist in the military in exchange for a work permit. If you want to be here and be successful in America, give us 3 or 4 years of your life defending the country that you have chosen to live in. If you can't take the oath, then you don't belong here anyway.
Sure.
Right? So join the military and contribute to our effort to continue to be free.
Right. There has to be a way to get the large number of immigrants, millions, that are in the country illegally, but to at least to make them part of our American culture and to train them in what it means to be an American. The way it is right now, we've said this many times before, you have a country that is losing its identity. And, between the drugs and the alcohol and the general confusion out there as to what it means to be an American, the confusion on college campuses, these are serious issues. Immigration is a very serious issue. We have to look at this. At this point, we have to look at this thing holistically. And there are, for those who are already here, there are solutions. It's going to take a long time, but there are solutions. But if we continue to leave the border wide open, it becomes almost impossible to do anything with it. It's just too much, too many. Yeah. And there's not even enough money to support an infrastructure that could accommodate these people.
Well, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back right after this. But for the moment, I'd like to talk to you about the expense of airing this program. Many people don't realize how expensive it is to produce this program and to get it on the air. Would you care to guess? It's about $3,000 per week. We think that's a reasonable expenditure, but obviously it's an expensive one. So we need to ask for your help. If you'll go to actionforlife.org and click on the donate button, it would be greatly appreciated. Now, you can donate once or you can donate each month, and we certainly have viewers who do both. We appreciate that. Please take time now to visit actionforlife.org and click on the donate button. Thank you so much for your support, and may God bless you always. Welcome back to A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier. Today we're talking about immigration. Another point about immigration, Father, is all of these major cities that are experiencing an influx of immigrants have to feed them, house them, clothe them, provide them with health care. That money has to come from somewhere. And what the citizens of those cities, and in some cases states, are realizing is that services are being cut back that normally would be provided to compensate for the enormous expense of these immigrants.
Sure.
That's another huge problem, particularly when we have the kind of national debt that we have.
Well, BC, we're talking about a national debt of over $30 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even get my head wrapped around a trillion, no less 30 trillion. So we do have a crisis in this country regarding the debt on the federal level. Also, our cities, for the most part, they're unable to handle the crisis. And it's a crisis of illegals coming into their cities.
They can't deal with the homeless. How are they going to deal with immigrants?
Right. And, why a city would declare itself a sanctuary city for illegal immigrants is beyond me when they have so many problems of their own. People already living there, born in this country, are living in boxes on the street. I have one of my brothers is up in New York. He works on Wall Street, and he says the situation is horrendous. Situation is horrendous with the number of homeless people there are, people who are begging for food. This is it's something that you can't imagine would be happening in this country. But let me tell you something else. I have another brother that lives in Brooklyn, and the federal government, it's the city of New York, beg your pardon, the city of New York was frightened about some kind of a weather alert. I think it was the potential nor'easter or hurricane or something like that. And they were worried, well, what do you do with these people that are here living on the streets? So there is an old military base in Brooklyn called Floyd Bennett Field. It was used during World War II. I think for the most part, it's kind of defunct now, and the buildings are not in the best of shape. But they brought all these people to Floyd Bennett Field, which is at the southern tip of Brooklyn. And these people were brought there, and they were being housed there in very substandard buildings. And they weren't getting enough food. They didn't have enough clothing. The weather was cold, and they were hungry. So they begin to leave the compound and march down this huge, probably the main avenue in Brooklyn is Flatbush Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And they start marching down there and coming into the various neighborhoods. And they're begging for food and clothes.
Wow.
And knocking on doors. And my brother said they had cell phones because they couldn't speak the language, saying on the cell phone, "I am hungry. I need clothes." My brother said, this is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to see this, especially they have children with them, young people. But he said, what do you do? What do you do? It doesn't stop. The flow of people just didn't stop. And then, of course, people get frightened. They're in the neighborhood. They
Sure.
say, these people, could they rob us? You see children looking at this, and folks, I'll tell you the truth, I'd be crying. I would be crying watching this parade of poor souls trying to eat and to be clothed. I mean, it's a terrible, terrible thing. Then you have some geniuses saying, well, you should take them into your home. You don't even know what you're taking into your home. First of all, even if they're good people, they might not ever get out of your home. I mean, the New York laws are so that the landlord has no rights. You could stay there for a long time and say, I'm a squatter, I'm staying.
Did you ever see the movie Down and Out in Beverly Hills?
No, tell me about it.
It's a homeless guy gets befriended by a wealthy Beverly Hills guy, and pretty soon they decide to move him into the house, and then they can't get rid of him. It's a comedy.
Yeah, well, this is a fact these days. With squatters.
Squatters, yeah.
If you're trying to be a Christian, a gospel-based person, if you're a person that just has a heart, say, I can't let these kids stay out there in the hurricane or in the cold weather, and I better let them into my house. But you're leaving yourself open to having some permanent guests and maybe a lawsuit against you, or you might take in somebody who's a criminal. Decide they're going to slit your throat. Let's face it. This is the fault. This is the fault of the city. The cities: New York, Chicago, San Francisco. This is their fault. And these politicians that vote for, we're a sanctuary city. We're a sanctuary city for illegal immigrants. Throw them out of office. They don't know what they're talking about. they're putting you in danger. Physical danger, they're putting you in physical danger. They're putting the city in financial distress. This is what's happening. And if you don't do something to stop it, your cities are going to be overrun and they're not going to be yours anymore.
That's right. And you know, everyone thought, not everyone, the people in these cities thought that being a sanctuary city was a great idea, very virtuous, right? We're not going to take these poor people and turn them over to immigration where they're going to be deported. We're just going to let them stay here harmlessly. Well, be careful what you wish for, right? Because now they're being overrun. And it amuses me when they excoriate Governor Greg Abbott from Texas, who, you know, very openly loaded people onto buses and airplanes and said, you want them, you can have them, right? We'll pay to transport them. Now,
what was his name? Governor DeSantis did the same thing.
Right.
He sent them to Martha's Vineyard. Boy, they got them out of there fast, didn't they?
you know, the Obamas have a big house on Martha's Vineyard.
Yeah,
Why don't they invite some people
Sure.
in? They're not there most of the time.
They were removed within 1 day.
Yeah.
1 day. Yeah.
I'm sure their civil rights was not front and center in that removal either.
I don't think so. So BC, this immigration problem, it is a real, genuine crisis, and you have to have people that are willing to deal with it. Willing to deal with it. It's not simple, but we have to do something. And if it continues, we lose our country. Sometimes we might even lose our lives. I mean, that's how dangerous it can be.
And that's why it's the number one issue on voters' minds. Now, the question I have is, if it's your number one issue, will you vote for representation that has a solution to the issue? That is the question.
Yeah, well, let's talk about, how do people vote? Do people vote on the issues, or do they vote simply, how they've always voted? So, just suppose I had my old Uncle Mike. God rest him. He came over. He was born here, but then the parents sent him back to Italy, and then he came back when he was a little bit older, and he liked President Roosevelt, right? And he would say, "I vote democratico. I vote democratico." I mean, so if that's your, he didn't really understand the issues.
Sure.
He liked President Roosevelt.
Well, that was in the days of the big box, where you could just check one box.
Right.
All the Democrats.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, if he were alive today, I don't think he'd be changing his mind very much.
I was going to say, do you know? But I think there's an even bigger issue today, bigger than the party, and that is personality. Mm-hmm. So I look at Governor DeSantis, who is a very, very good man and a great governor, but he's not a retail politician. So he didn't gain a lot of traction in the presidential primary season, right? On the other hand, you look at Donald Trump, he is what he is, but he's a larger than life guy. He was on The Apprentice. He's, always been in the media for years. People vote for personalities, which is kind of sad.
It really is.
Schwarzenegger is another example.
Yeah.
Although I think he did a pretty good job in California, given that he was a Republican in a largely Democratic state. But, all these celebrities manage to get elected because they're celebrities, not because they're good at what they do.
Yeah, it's pizzazz. It's pizzazz. As you said, Governor DeSantis, an outstanding governor.
In every way.
Yeah, and he didn't gain the traction because, the personality is not the personality of a Donald Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We'll take a break, and we'll be back right after this. Glenn Beck is coming to Naples on October 30th. This is your once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get up close and personal with renowned author, broadcaster, and political commentator Glenn Beck. Enjoy elegance, education, and enlightenment as Glenn Beck and Father Michael Orsi engage in a highly anticipated dialogue on stage at the beautiful Naples Grand Beach Resort. Get tickets today with an early bird discount at actionforlife.org/events. Welcome back to A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier. Father, just a couple of minutes left today. Final thoughts on this whole immigration mess?
Yes, it's complex. Is it fixable? I believe it is still fixable, but we can't continue much longer like this because we could be simply overrun by the numbers. As when the barbarians invaded the Roman Empire, all of a sudden the empire becomes diluted and loses its strength and its power, its identity, and even its desire to survive as an empire. It affected the military too, because if the barbarians begin to, enter into the military, and if your heart isn't into the whole thing, defending Rome, let's face it, it ain't gonna happen. It's gonna fall apart. Now, with illegal immigration, the ones that are here, as I said many a time, they have to be taken care of, and they cannot be taken advantage of. Big business, big farms, and all of these businesses that depend on workers, local workers, unskilled labor. You got to treat them the right way. They get a fair wage. Okay, number one. Number two, you have to control the border for national identity. We talked about that. We have to control the border because drugs are coming through, period. The problem with drugs is growing exponentially in this country. We have a country that really, at this point, our young people are unfit, many of them unfit to serve in the military. Fentanyl is killing 100,000 Americans a year, okay? What more do I have to tell you than that? Plus, you have people who are coming in here who are bringing in women for the sex trade. And they get into this country, and then they decide that they're going to ship them all over the country and give them some kind of a court date, 30 years from now. And in the meantime, you have women and children that are being used and abused by those involved with the sex trade. We don't even know where most of them are. So there is a lot riding on this. It is a moral issue. And you better get on the case of the politicians and decide what they stand for, what they say they're going to do, and then hold their feet to the fire to make sure that they do it. Because if they don't, we are finished as a country.
Thank you, Father, and thank you for joining us. Please join us again next week, same time, same place, for A Conversation with Father Orsi. I'm BC Cloutier. Until next week, thank you so much for watching, and God bless.